how is China likely to behave as it becomes much more powerful? And it's very important for you to understand, I'm not talking about China today, and I'm not talking about China tomorrow. I'm talking about China 10, 20, 30 years down the road, when it becomes very powerful, when it's much more powerful than it is today. And the question you want to ask yourself is, how is China likely to behave then? And my argument is, as China grows more powerful, it will go to great lengths to establish regional hegemony. Why? Because from China's point of view, it makes eminently good sense to be the most powerful state in Asia. All of the Chinese in the audience surely remember what happened in the past when China was weak. When China was weak, it was victimized. It was victimized by the other great powers. It would have been much better for China if from 1850 forward, it was by far the most powerful state on the planet, instead of being one of the weakest states on the planet. Because when you were weak, you were victimized. You want to be the biggest and baddest dude on the block. If I gave you a choice, you can be 50 times more powerful than Japan, or Japan can be 50 times more powerful than you. You think it makes any difference? Of course it makes difference. It makes a huge amount of difference. There's no Chinese person in his or her right mind who doesn't want to be 50 times more powerful than Japan. If you're Chinese, you want to be 50 times more powerful than Russia, India, and Japan. You want to be the most powerful state in your region. Is that because you're evil? Is that because you're obsessed with conquest? No. It's because the best way to survive in an anarchic system where you cannot know the intentions of other states, and some of those states may come at you at some point, is to be very, very powerful. Again, to go back to the United States of America, we are not so powerful on accident. The founding fathers and their successors went to great lengths to build a remarkably powerful state, because that's the best way to maximize your security. And the Chinese will surely figure this out if they haven't already figured it out. You want to be really powerful. You want to be a regional hegemon. Now, second thing that the Chinese are going to do is they're going to try and push the Americans out of Asia. They'd be fools not to. If I was a national security advisor in Beijing and the president asked me how we should think about the Americans, I'd say the farther we can get the Americans away from Asia, the better. I don't want them on our doorstep. I'm an American. We have this thing called the Monroe Doctrine. You've all heard of the Monroe Doctrine. In 1823, old President James Monroe told the European great powers, "We are not now powerful enough to throw you out of this hemisphere, but we're eventually going to reach the point where we are powerful enough to throw you out. And we're going to throw you out, and we want you to know you're not welcome back in the Western Hemisphere." The Monroe Doctrine is still operative today. If China gets really powerful and it tries to project power into the Western Hemisphere, we will not be happy at all. Should we expect China to have its own Monroe Doctrine? Of course we should. My mother taught me when I was a little boy, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If it's good for us, why isn't it good for China? We don't like it when the Soviets come into the Western Hemisphere and try to put nuclear weapons and naval forces and ground forces in Cuba during the Cold War. We didn't like that at all. Why should you like it when the Americans are sitting on your doorstep and projecting power into your backyard? My point is, if you have a choice, and you think you can push us beyond the first island chain, you think you can push us beyond the second island chain, you will do it. And you will do it because you're good strategists. You understand. The goal here is to establish regional hegemony. And that means, number one, being the most powerful state in your region. And number two, it means that you don't want the United States or any other distant great power in your backyard. So this is what I think is going to happen. And this brings us to the question, what is the United States going to do as China tries to establish regional hegemony? The theory is quite clear, and the empirical record is quite clear. The United States of America does not tolerate peer competitors. We will go to enormous lengths to contain Chinese power. We will go to enormous lengths to make sure that China does not dominate Asia. The same way we went to great lengths to make sure Imperial Germany, Imperial Japan, Nazi Germany, and the former Soviet Union didn't dominate either Europe or Asia. You can already see evidence of it. What do you think the pivot to Asia is all about? You don't believe the Americans when they say it has nothing to do with containing China? This is typical American hypocrisy. Nobody in their right mind believes that. The pivot to Asia is all about containing China. And the more power China accrues, the more the United States will pivot to Asia, because we intend to contain you. The theory is clear and the history is clear. And you, of course, will not be happy about that, because you'll be interested in getting us out of Asia for good strategic reasons. The end result of all this is we're going to have, if China continues to rise, an intense security competition. Is war inevitable? No. Is war possible? Yes. We could posit all sorts of scenarios where the Americans and the Chinese end up shooting each other. Could be over Taiwan, could be over Korea, could be over the South China Sea, could be over the Diao Islands. Who knows? But there are potential flashpoints there, and when you marry those potential flashpoints with the fact that you're going to have an intense security competition, the potential for trouble is very great. Let me end by making one quasi-optimistic argument. My case is based on a theory, as I said early on. And as almost all of you know, there's no social science theory that gets it right all the time. Social science theories are actually crude instruments. We have no choice but to employ theories to make sense of the world. The world is enormously complicated. We need theories to make sense of it. And as I said early on, if you're going to try and predict what happens as China rises, there's no way you can do that without a theory. But theories, because they're simplifications of reality, leave out all sorts of factors that sometimes matter greatly. For a realist like me who focuses on power and structure, domestic politics doesn't matter in my story. But in reality, domestic politics occasionally matters. And that's one of the reasons that my theory is sometimes proved wrong. No theory, again, is perfect. My best guess, and this is purely intuitive, is that the best theories get it right 75% of the time. That means they're wrong 25% of the time. Let's assume, just for argument's sake, that my theory is one of the best theories out there. It gets me a slot in the Hall of Fame. Just assume that. Even if that's true, I'm still wrong 25% of the time. Given the bleak picture that I've just described, let's hope that with regard to the rise of China, that will turn out to be one of the instances in which my theory is proved wrong. Thank you.